Hey there, Blazer fans, and welcome to episode 44 of The Dragon's Den, a podcast for those that bleed green and gold. Today I have a very special guest, Mr. Kevin Fehr. Kevin was on the first two UAB baseball teams and went on to a great career in coaching and officiating and a great career after sports that you will hear all about in the episode. Before I dive in, know this week in Blazer history segment at the end, but let's get started. Thanks for listening. All right, Blazer fans, I've got my guest here for episode 44 of The Dragon's Den, former UAB baseball pitcher from 1979 to 1980 and former official for many different levels of basketball, high school, college, and NBA, and so much more, Mr. Kevin Fehr. Kevin, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm delighted to have you on. You've got a quite a quite a history book of sports involvement from many levels, as I mentioned. But for the sake of my podcast, you had the distinction of being on the first UAB baseball teams in 1979 and 1980. You're from Cincinnati, Ohio. What was your baseball playing career like before UAB, and what made you come to an upstart baseball program at UAB? It was just starting.
Right. Well, I went to a junior college in Panama City, Florida, Gulf Coast Junior College, and played baseball down there for 2 years. And I was really back in Cincinnati and had a couple of offers, but nothing that really interested me. Then all of a sudden, I get a phone call from the assistant coach at that time, a guy named Joe Platt, and asked me if I wanted to come down. They were just getting ready to start their program, want to come down and be a part of it. So I got in the car and my '68 Rambler and drove drove down here, 8 hours down here, and kind of looked around, and just had a pretty good offer from them. And of course, playing for an ex major league coach and player, Harry the Hat Walker, thought, yeah, let's go to Birmingham. So that's kind of what happened. And coming from Cincinnati, especially growing up in the mid '60s, Birmingham wasn't well talked about.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of negative thoughts about Birmingham coming down. But once I got down here, spent the weekend, drove around, looked around. I thought, Birmingham's a nice place. So that's what kind of sold me to come down here. So I turned around and came down and been here pretty much ever since.
Well, I look back at the roster from that first season, and UAB had guys from all around the country, really, on that first roster. You had guys from Ohio, Mississippi, Florida, and you had a bunch of guys from Memphis and Pennsylvania, and of course the Birmingham area, and a couple of guys in Mobile. How was the gelling process with that first roster? How much time did you guys really get to work together before that first season?
We got down here actually in the fall, and so we had a fall season. And you know what? We just came together because we knew we were the first team. We had no history behind us, really no expectations in front of us. We just wanted to get out there and get on the field and play baseball. A lot of the team was made up of junior college players. Joe Platt, he was from a junior college in Memphis, so he brought a lot of his players. I know me and another guy from Ohio, Gary Wex. We were from there. He was a junior college player. So yeah, a lot of the roster was built just kind of probably just pretty much on the fly, because I don't think they really had time to recruit any high school kids. But the next year we did have some more high school players come in. But like I said, we just played. Like I said, we had no expectations, so we just kind of rolled the ball out and let's just play ball. So yeah, it was kind of nice about that.
Well, in your first season at UAB, the Blazers finished 21-29 with some notable wins over South Alabama, Georgia Tech, Auburn, and Alabama. It's one thing to practice together as a team, but that first season, what was it like getting that game experience together?
You know what? Those were some great wins for us, and I kind of think probably a lot of those we weren't expected to compete. But like I said, we had a lot of junior college players, so we had experience. We had some what you could call, I guess, veteran players, playing.
Mhm.
And even though they hadn't played at that level, they've still played in some pretty good junior college leagues and
Yeah.
had a lot of experience in bigger games and against good competition. I know at Gulf Coast, in Panama City, we would go over and scrimmage Florida State, 3 or 4 times in the fall. So they had some pretty good players back then.
Hmm.
So we were used to, I think, and a lot of the other schools the same way. We were used to kind of a higher level of competition, and maybe we got taken a little bit lightly because we were a first year program. Nobody knew anything about us. So we just, like I said, there wasn't any expectations. We weren't expecting to win, and all of a sudden we get in the fourth or fifth inning, and we got a ball game, and we just hung in there.
Well, UAB played all the home games at that time at Rickwood Field. What was it like playing at Rickwood?
Looking back, it was really pretty neat. I mean, um, our team, we were the ground crew also. So we had a couple rakes, and we raked the field before, raked the infield, fixed the mound, fixed the batter's boxes. Didn't really have any bullpens. We did have the old clubhouse, so it was really pretty neat, to have a setup like that. And now looking back, and really, I didn't know anything about Rickwood Field, coming out of Cincinnati, because it was more of a pro town with the Reds and everything. But looking back now, just the history of Rickwood Field, it's even neater now to realize that played 2 years there. So that was something.
Yeah, that is awesome.
We didn't get much of a crowd, because it was a little bit off campus, and
Yeah.
at that time, that part of town was kind of like us, wasn't well thought of. So, but we had a good time over there.
So what was it like playing for legendary head coach Harry the Hat Walker, which UAB's first head
Yeah,
coach?
yeah, right, right. I learned a lot of baseball from him. Not just as far as pitching, because he was a hitter. So
Hmm.
he taught hitting, but I did learn a lot about hitting. But I learned a lot about, because me being a relief pitcher, I would spend the first part of the game in the dugout, and just a lot about kind of game management, and kind of things he was thinking about and doing, and looking ahead. And so I learned a lot of strategy from him. He was young at coaching college too, so he really leaned on the assistant Joe Platt a lot, which was good, because Joe was used to our kind of players. So I think there's a little adjustment on his part too, realizing, hey, these guys aren't pros. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to do some dumb things. They got to go to class. Got to get their stuff done. So that wasn't our job at that point. So I think it was a learning part on both. But like I said, I learned a lot of baseball from him. Really appreciate everything he did.
That's fantastic. In 1980, UAB joined the Sun Belt Conference and had the first winning record in school history in baseball. And you went 30-20. That year, you were drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals in the MLB draft and played in the minor leagues. What was minor league baseball like for you?
Minor league baseball, back then it was. I mean, it's minor league baseball. I mean, I was in Johnson City, Tennessee. Actually, the year I got drafted was Daryl Strawberry. He had just got drafted out of high school, and we were
Wow.
in the same league, so got to face him a couple of times. Actually, a trivia question nobody knows except me, but Daryl Strawberry's 0 for 3 against me.
That's
um,
awesome.
yeah. So anyway, it was. I mean, it was so hot that Tennessee, and we had about 4 guys in the trailer, and I think one guy had a car. But we got down to practice every day, got down and back, got the games. It's a grind though, because it's just a lot of games. There's a lot of travel, a lot of travel was in basically just a Greyhound bus. So we were coming 4 or 5 hours, and playing, and getting home, and then sometimes if we're on a road trip, the last day of the road trip, if we have 15 rooms, well, they cut those 15 rooms down to five. So you got to put about 25 guys in five rooms for the whole day.
Wow.
A lot of them don't speak the same language. um, you got a little bit of money to go find something to eat. So you pretty much were on your own. You just had survival of the fittest,
Care.
basically.
Seems like a lot of character building too. It sounds like.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, they're gonna make sure the cream rises to the top with them.
Well, you went on to be an assistant baseball coach at Gulf Coast Community College in Panama City, and you started officiating junior high school and high school basketball during that time. What was that time like for you coaching and getting into officiating?
Well, that was a big turn in kind of my path in life, I guess, because I got out of baseball and I was sitting around. I was working in Cincinnati. I was working at a cemetery, and all of a sudden I get a phone call from the coach down there, a guy named Bill Frazier, and he said, "Hey, you want to come down and be my assistant coach?" And man, I about packed up that night and went. So, but and then I was getting paid $100 a month. I had a place to live on the beach. Had no bills. I ate at the cafeteria, and fall season got over. So he said, "Hey, you need to referee some basketball to make some money." I said, "Well, you know what? You're right." And Coach Frazier at the time, he was in the SEC, and he was in the Sun Belt, but he was also doing high school ball down there. It was just a small association, about 12 or 15 guys. So I got in there with them and got a real good foundation to officiate, and really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed learning and just the athletic part of it. Uh, then the next year came back, and then I was a graduate assistant at UAB, and that's where I continued and got involved in the high school association up here. But yeah, I tell people, I say my first game, junior high girls, and threw the ball up, and I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew where to go.
As you mentioned, you came back to the Birmingham area, and you told me when I was doing my research and everything, you told me that you helped build Young Memorial Field at UAB as a grad assistant for the team. What was that process like?
Right. Yeah. Well, I can't. I know the field is named after Jerry Young, Young Memorial Field,
Hmm.
and he was I want to say the president of college at the time, and he was very big, backer athletics because he got Gene Bartow here and he
Hmm.
started the athletic program, and so we finally, where it's located. I used to be just a city park, and just had a fence for a backstop where the bleachers are. So anyway, they purchased that, and I didn't do a whole lot. I probably laid a lot of sod and probably helped put some of the fence in. But I do remember a lot of work around the dugouts. Pouring cement, help laying the bricks and the roofing. So that was pretty neat. Especially where it is now. In fact, I just went by there today and saw the turf field. So hopefully it'd be nice if they had plans to kind of expand the bleachers a little bit, and kind of make it. I know it's hard to compete with the SEC stadiums because they're like double A stadiums now.
Yeah.
They're kind of like Regents Field. I
Mhm.
mean, it's hard to compete. So I'm sure that's something Casey's looking at, and hopefully they'll be able to do some work down there on that.
You also became a teacher and a baseball coach at John Carroll and Thompson high schools here in Birmingham. You also continued officiating basketball games at the high school level. Uh, just from a teaching aspect, what courses were you teaching, and what was it like balancing all of these jobs?
Um, Actually, at John Carroll, believe it or not, back in what was that, 82 or 83, I was teaching. Besides math, I was teaching computer science, but we didn't have any computers. Didn't have any computers, at least the first year or two. Um, so it's really kind of program writing is what I was teaching, a little bit of history, uh, and I mean, I never could have done any of it because at the time we had a couple little kids, little daughters, and my wife was a nurse. I was teaching, I was coaching, I was refereeing. So we had like four careers kind of going at the same time. But you know what? She never said no. I mean, she could have said no, to any of those, and I would have had to make some changes to it. But the I mean, coaching was in my blood back then, so I wanted to coach for sure. Teaching was a great avenue to do that. I enjoyed teaching. Refereeing, I made a little bit of extra money. I'd go out on a Saturday and work six games and make I think they're paying $8 a game back then. Come home with $48 in my pocket and you know feel like I was the richest guy in the world. High school's paying probably $25 a game, junior high. So anyway, so yeah, we kind of needed the extra little income that the officiating brought.
After years of officiating at the high school level, you moved up to the college level and officiated junior college games as well as larger conferences like the Gulf South, Transamerica, Sun Belt, and the SEC. What did you like the most about officiating at the college level?
Um, a lot of the college level. Of course, I was learning then, but what I really enjoyed, really not just in college, but even in the professional level, was working with older officials, kind of watching them, taking from them what was good and things I could, kind of put in my game as far as an official. So in college, you got pretty much a wide variety of that. In the NBA, not so much because the roster is a little bit smaller. Um, so I really enjoyed, and especially being in the SEC at the time. And there were some great teams back then. I mean, LSU had Shaquille O'Neal, Alabama with Wimp. They had their run. Sonny was down at Auburn. You had Kentucky. I mean, there were some very very good teams, and it was a tremendous league. So, the competition was something every night, every Saturday that you go out there. Um, so that was a big part of it, I think.
You then went on to the pro level officiating the NBA from 1995 to 2013. How did it feel to reach that level after so many years?
Um, it was a process to get there, so it wasn't like all of a sudden you're hired. It was a process of a couple years that I had the opportunity, and the NBA they scout officials like they scout players, and I'd been seen somewhere along the line, so they got my name, got a hold of my college supervisor John Guthrie, who was with the SEC, and I went to a couple camps, a couple of summers. Went out to Salt Lake City one summer, went out to Long Beach one summer, and you're out there 10 days, and meetings in the morning, you referee, you break down tape, and then you do it all over again for 10 days. So they get a real good look at you, and so I kind of had an idea that I was on their radar, and the year I got hired was when they expanded. They brought in Toronto and Vancouver. Um, so they needed probably about five more referees for their staff, and I was one of the five. But I'm kind of a low key guy. I know my wife and daughters they all want to celebrate. Hey, let's make a big deal. But I said, you know what, let's wait till I accomplish something, in the NBA. So looking back, especially now, 'cause I have a grandson who plays basketball, and I see, I mean, the number of kids involved in basketball is amazing. And this is just in Birmingham, or maybe one tournament in Birmingham. Just think about that throughout the country. And then knowing, okay, only 450 are going to eventually be on an NBA roster. And at that time, you look at the same number of referees throughout the country, and only 60 will ever make it to the NBA or be on their roster. I think the roster's a little bit bigger now, but looking back, yeah, I kind of realize now that it was a big deal to be part of that.
So during your time officiating, did you ever, kind of stop and look at yourself and go, I didn't see myself doing this as a career, or did you always kind of want to stay in sports no matter what capacity or kind of angle?
I was starting to get out of coaching because, we had, four daughters, and I spent a lot of time, coaching other people's kids. I wanted to coach mine. So I started kind of getting out of coaching because I ended up at a junior high, and I got out of football and just was doing some baseball. I was getting ready to get out of that. But then when basketball started evolving, well, all right, this is a full-time job. The season's 7 months, so you got 5 months off. So it afforded my wife to, she was a nurse at the time, so she wouldn't have to be a nurse; she'd be a full-time mother. Um, but then, once I got into it, and you're traveling, and the season's going, and you're refereeing, it's play after play after play. And, I thought, it's kind of crazy way to make a living, but I love it. you know, Even though there's a lot of stress there, it is a job.
Mhm.
People, they only see you out there for a couple hours a night, so they think, okay, that's your day. Well, no, it's not, because there's film work. There's rules you have to stay up on. Obviously, conditioning is part of it. So it's a little more than what they see in those 2 hours. But no, I was so appreciative of the time that I had that you know yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I won't ask you who the toughest athlete you had to deal with at the pro level was, unless you want to name drop some folks. But what team had the toughest fans?
Uh, there's probably a couple. One one was Sacramento. Um, they, for a while, they were very, very good. Uh, that's the only sport in the city of
Yeah,
Sacramento, and their arena was such where, I mean, the baseline, I mean, the stands are 6 feet off the baseline, and 3 feet of that we got to have the referee. So basically, they're just right on top of you, and so and they're fans. Philadelphia, they can be tough, but I say this, but they know basketball, and I say this
hmm
also about the fans in Madison Square Garden. Uh, I used to love to go there. I mean, it's just like I say, it's just the epicenter of basketball. But they're very wise fans. They know when me as a referee mess up, and they yell at me. They know when the players mess up, they yell at them. They know when the coach mess up, they yell at them. So that's okay. I'll take that.
Well, so it kind of goes hand in hand with that. What was the craziest environment you've ever officiated in? And it could be pro, college, whichever.
Um, I can't remember. I do. Looking back now, um, like I said, there were some games, and I remember a Thursday night game in Sacramento, and they were playing the Lakers. And this one, the Lakers, they had Kobe and Shaq, and it was Derek Fisher, uh, very, very good team. And this is kind of late in the year, and it was a Thursday night, so at that time, that was TNT. There's only two games on, so I mean, the fans were ready that night. I mean, you could, and this was before we had the little system where when you blow a whistle, it stops the clock.
hmm
Uh, Literally, you could almost not even hear your partner's whistle. Um, Luckily, the players close to him could hear it, but I mean that's how crazy it was in Sacramento that
Wow.
night. Yeah.
Who were the best coaches or players that you dealt with during your time as an official?
The best players, I have to say, Shane Battier was great. It's kind of funny because you could almost look at where they came from.
hmm
Um, Players from Duke were great players, but they're always very, very respectful of officials. And you can name almost any player from them. Um, there's some other schools that I won't name, and some other college coaches. They were not very respectful of officials. Um, so Shane Battier was great. Actually, most of the players in the NBA are good. Um, you don't really hear about them a lot, because they don't get tossed out, they don't make the highlights, they don't get technicals, they don't get suspended, so you don't hear about them. But most of them are pretty good. Michael Jordan was great. I mean, he was a true professional. Um, if he said something, all right, it's kind of he'll come next to you, just kind of put his hands on his knees and say something. But other than that, he was done. He was gone. He was playing. And some of the best coaches were like that. Rick Pitino was like that when he was there, even in college. Yeah, he would be upset, but he would say one thing, and Pat Riley was the same way. One comment about a play and gone. He's back to coach. On to the next play. Um, and most of the players were like that. Larry Brown could be tough, but I think for the most part he was fair. But yeah, he could be tough at times. And you also have to understand, they're fighting for their lives too.
Mm.
Everybody's trying to stay employed.
Yep.
Me as an official, those coaches, those players. So he's trying to stay employed as a coach. So I can understand them fighting something the way they do.
You officiated some big moments in NBA history. Kobe Bryant's 81 point performance in 2006, NBA games in Mexico City in 1996, and in China in 2013. And you officiated at least two NBA All-Star games. What were those experiences like?
Those were very unique, and I guess what it does, especially the All Star games and the games out of the country, they really make you realize how big the game is.
Mm-hmm.
That it literally is worldwide. The NBA is. You go over in China, and even officials, you're like stars over there. They're just anything NBA, they just can't get enough of. And Mexico City was like that. Where else talking about the All Star games? Yeah, you just realize how big of a production it is when you see the cameras and the announcers and all the reporters and stuff. They're all over the hotels and all over the. I mean, you got I don't know how many. You got just floors and floors and rooms and hotels of NBA people. And it's just amazing. How big of. I mean, it is a multi-billion-dollar business. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
That's where you really see that.
Well, you were inducted into the 2020 class of the Alabama Sports Officials Hall of Fame. What did that honor mean to you?
That was it meant a lot because one, going to college and the NBA, you kind of lose track a little bit of some of the high school and some of your former referees and that's who votes on it. It's current and former, basically local referees. So it's great to know that they appreciate and they respect what I had accomplished, and it was a great night. It's something that can never be taken away from me. But I think that's the biggest thing is just knowing that they remember and they appreciate everything that you've done in that sport.
So, how is life now, Kevin?
It's good. Semi-retired. We have 12 grandkids. 9 of them are boys, so a lot of soccer, a lot of basketball, baseball. So I enjoy kind of following them around. Still work in real estate, do a little residential and commercial real estate. So kind of stay busy, when I need to, and so it's good. It's kind of on the other side of the hill, so just enjoying it.
So, I got two more questions for you, Kevin. One of them was kind of a last minute. I noticed it came from my social media questions. And the other one is a lighthearted question I got for you. My first one, I'll go to the social media, is from Facebook. And I don't want to get you into too much trouble here, but it came from Mary Catherine on
Yeah.
Facebook. And she says, ask him who his favorite daughter is.
uh, well, I can't have a favorite. Um, so yeah, it's all four of my favorite. I got four daughters, so but I know the answer she wants me to give you, and that's Mary Catherine, but I can't say that.
All right. Well, I'll take a tie. And my last
All right.
question I got for you is a lighthearted question. If you can go back and relive one moment, it can be a game, a key play, time from, officiating, a time when you were playing. What time would you go back and relive?
I don't know if you meant like a specific one event or just a period. You know, some of them, there's I guess regrets that I have. We all do.
Yeah.
But as far as good times, I guess like we were talking about it before. Where my wife and family wanted to celebrate, uh, and they even wanted to celebrate when I got in. Getting in the SEC was a big deal too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and uh, but I guess and then getting in the NBA, was a big deal. Probably letting them go ahead and have and enjoying it with them, and letting them have their excitement and their celebration to that I accomplished something like that. So that's probably the time I like to go back. I mean, there's a lot of great times. I mean, a great weekend was when Kobe had his 81.
Mm-hmm.
Well, three of my daughters were with me for that game, and I was in LA. I had a Clippers game, a day off, and then had a Lakers game, and so they came out. I met them out there in LA, picked them up. I had the Clippers game, and the Clippers at that point they played at a different arena.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then no, they didn't. They're still there at Laker arena. But anyway, um, did all at LA that next day, that off day, and really enjoyed all of that. And then the game, but after the game, I put them on a red eye and flew them home because they had a school the next day. I
Oh
don't
my
think they
gosh.
went to school. But anyway, yeah, that was a great weekend. It turned out to be a great event for them. So that was pretty neat to have them part of that.
That's awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for all of this. This was some great stories, definitely, and it's just awesome getting to hear it from a different perspective. I've had players on, I've had fans, everything from the official side of things. It's very interesting to hear from it too. But just thank you so much for being on, and thank you for giving us all your stories.
All right, thank you, Will. Appreciate it.
All right, I want to thank Kevin for his time and all he has done in sports, not only at UAB but at all levels. It was really great getting to know him and hear some of his stories. And thank you for listening. Once again, no This Week in Blazer History segment for this episode, but be sure to check out my social pages at Dragons Den EFEL on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest guest announcements, UAB sporting news, and more. And be on the lookout for the episode 45 announcement coming soon. Good night and go Blazers.